Okay, Patmos, you're expanding in Kansas City, your AI data center facility. I guess what are you doing and why? Yeah, tell us more.
Yeah, this is actually pretty exciting stuff right now. The industry is moving really fast, and the demand for AI has made us kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit in how we design data centers. At Patmos here, we do retrofit, custom build AI data centers in a very short period of time. So we kind of specialize in what we call a brownfield, where we go into an existing location. We retrofit that to be capable for supporting high density AI workloads, and then we deliver it to the customer.
Okay, and the Kansas City facility, I believe, is your first Patmos AI campus. In terms of the overall project, just a bit about how it came about, the development of the data center, and I think the surrounding environment. So yeah, just give us an overview of what's going on.
Yeah, so we actually have been doing some co-location, smaller scale for customers in our existing data centers. So Patmos had three different facilities, one in Phoenix, one in Dallas, and one in Kansas City. And we had done some small amount of co-location for AI workloads, but nothing to the size or scale of what we're doing now in the old Kansas City Star printing press building. That's actually the building I'm sitting in right now. So behind me, you can see the room where the printing
Yes.
press used to be. But here we had a kind of an advantage in that this particular building is very large. It's 400,000 square feet and had substantial amount of infrastructure coming to it. So it already had redundant power feeds from two different power grids. It already had a chilled water plant on site. And so we were able to take that existing infrastructure and build out an AI data center very quickly. But we wouldn't have been able to do that had this building not already had those bones and those things that allowed us to do that.
Okay, and in terms of the capacity, what's the plan, the final plan, and is it incremental or all at once? What are you going to end up with?
Yeah, from a capacity standpoint, it is definitely incremental. So we started out and we started spending the meter, and we're talking to the electric company, and we're using quite a bit more power than obviously what had been in the past because the building's been sitting vacant. And so they let us know one of those two power grids didn't have the full capacity that it used to have. So we've been working with them, and they're incrementally upgrading and getting us back to the capacity in which the building originally had. And then we're in talks with them about potential future generation as well. So right now, we've got about 25 megawatts worth of power to the site. We're looking to grow that over 30 to potentially even as high as 50 or above. That would require that we bring in some additional circuits and or do some generation on site. So we're looking at fuel cells. We're looking at stuff like natural gas turbines. Anything that could accelerate or work as a bridge between what we need now and what we would eventually get from the utility company when they can do some upgrades and bring in a third circuit.
Okay, and in terms of the advantages of retrofitting, I mean, you've obviously explained speed, which I guess is one of the, if not the major one. But how would you overall characterize the advantages of retrofitting existing building or development as opposed to starting with a greenfield and going from there?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to underplay the advantage of speed here because I think there's a couple different things that go into our strategy that are both unique and probably should be looked at more in the industry in general. So right now we've got a couple different things. One is there's just a huge demand and it's a very long time. If you're doing a greenfield, you might be on a 3 to 5 year project. Typically, those projects are also very large. In order for you to justify doing a build like that, you're probably looking at hundreds of megawatts, if not gigawatts, right? And that's a little bit risky. And that's risky from a couple different reasons. One is when you're building supply that far in advance, then there's all sorts of changes in the market that could happen, right? And there's a lot of speculative builders that are out there doing it too. So what happens when suddenly the market gets flooded with all of this infrastructure? Are we still going to have the same type of demand 3 years from now, 5 years from now that we've got today, right? So Patmos is unique in the fact that we're kind of purpose building. So we're building for clients that have workloads right now that they need to have online, which means that we are probably avoiding maybe some of the risk in speculative building where I call it the field of dream moment in AI right now, where if you build it, you're hoping that the demand will still be there and they will come. But we're actually building for workloads that exist today that need to go online to me, that makes us a little bubble proof, right? Because we're in a situation where we're immediately turning the revenue and we're doing it at a smaller scale. So, we're looking at sites that are 50 megawatt and below, not above. And that also gives us a little bit of an advantage because we're able to really diversify our locations and our different type of customer base in a way that maybe other providers are putting all their eggs in, one basket. So.
And in terms of the speed, obviously you explain, maybe the greenfield folks are building a bigger facility, so that'll take them longer. But in terms of how quickly you can stand up the data center, or what is the advantage there in terms of the time frame?
Yeah, so I mean, we put 5 megawatts online in 90 days. And then we did another phase and another build where we put 7 megawatts online in about the same amount of time, about 90 days on that build as well. So, what we're doing in 3 months isn't even the amount of time some of these big projects spend trying to get permitting, right? So, I mean, substantially different size and speed for that, density as well. We've got deployments we've done that are 150 or 134 plus kW per cabinet.
And in terms of the retrofitting aspect, I mean, were you just sort of very lucky to find this facility that, as you say, had so many sort of services already, attached to it, if you like? Or do you think there are quite a lot of those opportunities if people sort of take the time to search them out?
Yeah, it's not just about finding a building that's got all of the right pieces. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? You need to have floor loading that can support cabinets that are very heavy. You have to have, ceiling heights big enough that you can put stands and water pipes in because you're probably not air cooling the AI workloads of today. So there are some just basic requirements, but I think there are lots of buildings out there that have, you know, thick concrete floors and high ceilings that had some type of manufacturing use case that doesn't exist anymore, which gave them a lot of power. One of the other aspects of it that we don't talk about as much is the fact that it's also the location. We're in the middle of downtown Kansas City. And most data centers are trying to build out in the middle of a field somewhere, right? And that could be, some people could see this as a disadvantage, but the advantage that we got from this is we had faster access to things like fiber optic cabling that was already going across, we're right up against the state highway. So we were able to get fiber brought in inside that same 90-day time window of build out. We, need a way to be able to reduce the water usage. We're trying to be more green in the way that we build our data centers. One of the ways that we can do that is we can leverage a district chilled water. So there's a company, Vicinity Energy, that actually does chilled water to businesses downtown to provide their cooling in the summertime. They also do steam to provide heat in the wintertime. We can actually work with them where we can leverage the fact that they, on off seasons, we can still consume that chilled water and we can provide hot water back to them that can help them in the process of making steam. So that makes the entire project more affordable and more green, and we use a lot less water by doing so. Well, that's not possible if you're out in the middle of nowhere because you have to be within a mile or two of their facilities, which are typically close to a downtown metro area. Like if you look at the maps of these chilled water companies, they need a lot of customers to service, and usually they want these large multi-tenant buildings, skyscraper type buildings. And so we're able to take advantage of some of those aspects by doing these as well, because we're kind of rethinking where you would normally traditionally put a data center. Normally the only thing you're going to put in a downtown area is going to be a carrier hotel for cross connects. You're not going to put a very large scale data center there. You'd put those, outside of town.
Okay, and then alongside the sort of the IT halls and that side of thing, how important is it to develop the non-IT parts of the data center? Because I know you've developed sort of offices, conference rooms, and more, I think, wider community facilities. So yeah, how important is that to the overall project?
Yeah, I mean, Patmos is an ideologically driven company. And so that does mean that one of the things that's important to us is that we think technology should be at the service of the human being. And that means that we should find ways to make sure that we're adding back to the community. One of the things we did when we started this project is I went door to door and knocked on all the neighborhood businesses and asked them about what they thought about our project and what we were doing, and what were some of the struggles that they've seen, being located down here. And it's funny because when you have those conversations, you end up finding out that it's little stuff like, waitress who has to walk to work and is going around the outside of a building that has had a part of it chained off for a long time, and the lights don't work, and she's scared to come around there at night after she gets off her shift. And those are easy things you can do because you can turn on lights and open up a breezeway where they can walk through or whatever. But what we really found is that they were just really excited to see the building in use. There's nothing worse than a building that's sitting vacant, right? It attracts the wrong crowd, and it doesn't, bring people into their doorways and stuff like that. And so those other elements of what we're doing in the building, the idea is that it requires people to actually step foot in the building and come downtown to go see those things. And so we want to have not just event spaces, but we want to look at maker spaces, podcast rooms, recording studios, temporary office space. The Midwest has a lot of remote IT workers here, and they don't have necessarily the same culture you would get in like a Silicon Valley, right? Because they're all just sitting in their homes. And so we want to have space where tech workers can come, meet, see other like-minded people. And so there's a lot of use cases like that that will draw people into the location. And obviously then they go around to those businesses that are near us, and that helps support the community as well. And so we've been really active working with the city on what they think and would be beneficial to the neighborhood and to the city. And then there's a big arts district in Kansas City as well. And so we're kind of looking at ways that we can work with. They have what's called First Fridays, where basically all these different art venues open up, and so there are a lot of people can come down and look at that artwork. We're looking at ways that we can be a part of that, maybe even do some AI generated artwork that only exists once and then is gone, that requires people to actually come and be in person to see it. That would help drive that foot traffic, right? So those are all like kind of creative ways that we can meet the vision and mission of Patmos, which is to bring technology to the forefront for the use for people, not the other way around. And then also, be good community partners with everybody else here.
Okay, and on that approach, I mean, do you think, because I know the data center industry, certainly in the UK and Europe, I expect it's the same states, has a bit of a sort of mixed reputation. So we say, obviously, everyone loves the digital world that it underpins, but then everyone sort of is aware of the amount of power it consumes and and increasingly water. So do you think it's important that data centers, more of them potentially take your kind of approach where they want to sort of integrate with the community as opposed to just say we're going to drop this huge great building in here, take all your power and water, and don't have any choice in the matter? Just your thoughts, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of those criticisms are warranted, right? Like, especially when the big data center comes in and they take so many tax breaks that the benefits of them being there aren't really seen by the community. And if they're hawking up all the critical infrastructure, that is one thing where we've got a little bit of an advantage, because as we're doing smaller builds, we're not hogging those resources as big as the gigawatt type places, right? So we've got a little bit of an advantage just inherent to doing retrofits, is that we're taking what was a building that wasn't being used and finding a use case for it. And we're not oversizing the building in such a way that it's as big a tax. It also means that we've got a little bit of an overhead that's necessary from a staffing standpoint. That means we're probably, based on megawatts, employing more people than a normal data center would too, just because we're doing smaller sites and you don't get as big of economies of scale. But I do think it's important that data centers find a way to integrate themselves into the communities, right? Like, I think not just from an optics standpoint, but because this is very much a business that it should be in support of the areas around it, and we, and a part of that community and that ecosystem. And so Patmos, has always found that that's an important part of what we do, and so it's just kind of natural to what we do. But I think other data centers should as well. We've got some really cool initiatives to help on the tech side too, where like we're going to be doing free cross connects inside of our locations, trying to get as many carriers in. We're going to make sure that we support whatever local peering exchange is there, and if there isn't one, try to start one. So we really want to kind of give back to the tech community as well, and make sure that we are doing our part in keeping a free and open internet.
Okay, and in terms of you mentioned it early on, I think I know you mentioned Phoenix and Kansas. I can't remember the third, but just tell us what your current estate is, and then maybe your future plans. You could, I mean, how much of a role? I mean, it sounds as if you potentially find a suitable site in almost every US city, or of a certain size. I mean, is that the ultimate ambition, or what is the plan in terms of the growth strategy as well?
Yeah, Patmos is already got locations in Phoenix, Dallas, and then we've got our existing location in Kansas City, and then the new one here. That this is where our focus is right now, is finishing doing the build out here. We will probably have that done by the first quarter of next year, 2026. Or at least we'll be at a place where we're now waiting on energy generation, third circuit from the electric company or whatever. And so what we're going to do is repeat the same process somewhere else. So we've already got a list of dozens of locations and potential locations all across the US. We've actually got a person whose full-time role is just citing those locations and vetting them to make sure that they would work. And we're going to continue to do it as long as, the demand is there.
Okay, and I guess, I mean, again, without prying too much, I mean, in the financial model, do you have sort of investors backers? How can have you got the money available to roll out as almost as quickly as you wish to?
Yeah, so Patmos has actually been a company that has bootstrapped quite a bit of it. It's privately owned. And so we are taking private funding for like the purchase of the building and for some of the construction build out and that sort of thing. But so far we've been able to just kind of get the funding on a, project by project basis as needed. And I don't see that stopping. Like it seems like that just gets easier and easier as we grow and as we validate the model that we're doing, that becomes something that we can show is repeatable. And and the fact that our projects go online and start generating revenue, almost immediately, that also helps because we're not looking at a speculative 3, 5 year type of project. We're basically in you know 90 days already showing that we're bringing revenue in, so that helps as well.
And maybe just finally, in terms of customer, I mean, do the customer feedback you get, do they either come to you because you're different, or once they're with you, they understand that you have a slightly different model and they appreciate the sort of your approach to data centers, which clearly differs from shall we say the norm. So yeah, just what sort of feedback do you get from your customers?
Well, I mean, there's also just the fact that there's not that many places that have GB, 130 plus kW racks online yet, right? So there is an element of the speed that also means that we've got the experience as well. So we have done liquid to the cabinet, we've done liquid to the chip, we've done, very high density in a single cabinet, and dealt with the heat distribution and the elements of it. We've seen the differences in how those workloads affect traditional data center equipment. So, I mean, the reaction time on AI is much different than on your traditional data center. I've seen swings of multi megawatts where 1 second you don't have the power and the next you're getting hammered with it, right? And even the stuff that's being rolled out today that's meant for those type of workloads aren't tuned and haven't been quite figured out, and controls have to be different. And so there is a level of experience that goes along with this that we're learning very rapidly, and we've done it. And so there is a peace of mind that we can give clients because we can tour them through a facility and show them that we, have this stuff online and that we've done it and we've learned those things. And you learn those little things you can only learn by doing it. Oh, well, I don't really like the valve on this particular door manufacturer brand because, they use a weak washer, and if the pressure's too high, it'll leak. And so, there's stuff like that that I think there's a lot of data centers out there right now who are making the claim that they can do this thing. And there's going to be lessons learned throughout the way. This is definitely a different type of workload than what we've seen in the last, 20 years.
Yeah, and sorry, finally, it just strikes me as well that, I mean, the current focus AI wise is very much on the training the large language models, which clearly is a big opportunity. But with your model, it seems almost perfectly designed for what follows the inferencing. Because if you're going to find these city center location stuff, I mean, that's pretty much perfect for inferencing, bringing AI close to where it's needing to be used. Is that part of the model you're planning?
Yeah, I mean, we do both LLM training and inference, both. So typically, most deployments will come with a little bit of compute along with it so that they do have the ability to do either one. But we definitely do have an advantage from a being downtown in a central region location that we've got low latency, at least on our first location here in Kansas City. So that works very well, especially because we are a company that tries to be a part of a lot of different peering exchanges, we tend to have a lot of different carriers that we can leverage for that low latency as well, which works well for an inference type model. But but yeah, so that is something where it's interesting because there's kind of two different major types of workloads, and they really require a little bit of a different build. One of the things that NVIDIA has announced recently is they're starting to have the idea of these smaller data centers that get interconnected to build like a large cluster out of multiple facilities. I think that's also going to work really well with our model because we can essentially say, hey, now you can scale your cluster build out instead of trying to find one location for everything in a market where there's probably less than 5% vacancy in the market right now from a colocation standpoint. We can essentially say, hey, build this small one and then interconnect it with your next location and interconnect it with your next location. And then all together, you get that big deployment that you were struggling to find a place for.
Well, it's been great to chat, and thank you so much. I mean, it's been fascinating to understand what's going on, and it sounds very exciting. So maybe we can touch base in another 6 months when I don't know how many more facilities you might have fired up, bearing in mind you can do it in 90 days. But at least for now, Joe, I really appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Phil, thank you very much. And I'm more than happy to talk anytime.